Excellent. Okay, so here goes. So welcome everyone. Today I'm going to take you on a journey that many leaders face, which is moving from chaos to clarity with GDPR. My aim is to cut through the jargon and give you a practical fast track plan that you can use straight away. Hopefully, you know, I'm Keith from Maturity. We're the people who make GDPR fun because it's fun that gets done. If it's a bore, it's a chore. So, let's move on. Morning, Kate. Let's move on to the next slide.
Morning.
So, what we're going to cover today is the chaos businesses face, the clarity we aim for, stripping GDPR back to its bare essentials, really, the biggest pitfalls, a fast track plan, why the fast track plan works, our role in all of this, um, a call to action, things for you to do, and then we should have time for some questions and answers at the end. And great to see a nice full room this morning. So let's begin with the chaos that businesses face. If I can get my slides to move on, that would be a good start, wouldn't it? Why doesn't that want to move on? Right. Okay. So businesses often hit the same roadblocks. Too much jargon. And GDPR, unfortunately, is one of those things which is just full of jargon, really, full of acronyms. And the Data Use and Access Act, the new act that's just come in, which now is an acronym of DUAA, just makes that even worse, because it's yet another acronym to add into the mix. Too many moving parts, and a lot of people just have no clear roadmap of quite where they're going, and that's when compliance starts to feel overwhelming. So the clarity we aim for is GDPR Made Simple. It's also the title of my book, by the way, which you can buy on Amazon, just $7.99, just saying. But yeah, we really do believe in making it simple. And part of that is giving people clear responsibilities. If you are a one-man band or a small company, obviously you might have all that responsibility yourself. But if you're part of a bigger team, then create some data champions. Have some people who have to take responsibility for GDPR within their individual department can actually ease that load and make it much better. Also think about whether you need a data protection officer, whether you need a DPO, and if you do need a DPO, which depends really on what data you process and how many people you process it for, then decide whether you want to do that internally. You might want to recruit somebody full-time, or do you want to use somebody externally, someone like yourselves? We provide an external DPO service. And that choice sometimes is one that has to be made. Or you can have both. You can have an internal DPO and an external DPO. One of our clients does that. They use me solely as a sounding board. So most of the day-to-day stuff they do themselves. But if they get a tricky problem, they like to know that there's another safe pair of hands that they can refer to and ask for my advice and my guidance. But we also believe in following practical steps and not just theory, because theory is boring. Practical steps, hopefully, is more interesting. So if we strip that GDPR back, at its core, what is GDPR all about? It's about protecting people's data. And that can be any kind of people, but that, I mean, it can be your own team, your own employees. It might be business partners that you work with. It might be your clients, obviously, or it could be suppliers. Could be trustees if you're a charity. Could be donors if you're a charity, which is again a whole area where there's a need to protect people's data. And of course, if you are a charity, and in fact, just yesterday, I was talking to a charity who provide women's refuge services in Sussex. And obviously there they are very conscious of the need to keep confidentiality around the data of the people that they're helping. So protect the people's data. Be transparent about it though, because the law says you have to be. So you should be telling people what you're doing with their data, where you're holding it, how long you're holding it, And by the way, on how long you're holding it, to just say, well, we keep it as long as necessary is no longer acceptable. You have to be precise in terms of timescales of when you're holding data, or at least when you're doing a review, whether you need to hold that data longer or not. And increasingly as well on the be transparent bit, and I was having this discussion with a client yesterday, they've just started making use of Claude AI, which is fine. Claude is great. It's one of the two main, I would say, one of the two main AI engines alongside ChatGPT. But you do need to be transparent about it. If you're using AI within your processes, then you need to make sure that in your privacy notice and in your other policies that you're telling people that you are using AI on their data, because they do have a right to object and say, we don't want you to use AI on our data. We want you to use the good old-fashioned way where you actually have to think about it. So it's important about being transparent. Um, You have to give people control as well. And what I mean by that, people have the right to ask for a copy of their data. They have the right to, once they've got that copy of your data, they have the right to ask for it to be modified. If there are errors in it, they have the right to ask for a copy of that data. They can ask you to delete that data. Or they can request you to delete the data, because there might be all sorts of legal reasons why you can't delete their data. If you're in the middle of a contract, you can't delete their data. If you're an employee, you can't delete their data. So there's all sorts of reasons why you might not be able to delete the data, but you have to give people the choice, the option to request it. And we come back to the thing again of keeping data secure. And that means either, if you're holding it electronically, then making sure that data is behind, at least behind a password, preferably behind two-factor authentication, so a password plus maybe a code that gets sent to a mobile phone or another external device. And keep the data encrypted if you can as well. But GDPR also applies to paper documents, not just electronic data, and that's where sometimes people get confused. So think about your paper documents that got details about people on. Where do you keep those? What happens to them at night? Do you just leave them on your desk? Do you put them in a cupboard with a lock on it? Hopefully. Um, I was with a client not so long ago, and they had this great idea of keeping all their HR records in a little sort of built-in cupboard in one of the walls, which was fantastic. Except they kept the key permanently in the lock, which sort of defeats the purpose of having a lock. Because if the key's always there, why even bother locking the door? It does not make sense. So just sometimes it's just thinking about things like that. So the biggest pitfalls that businesses can do, that I see businesses doing, is treating GDPR as a one-off project. It isn't. GDPR is not a tick box project. It's not you do it today and then you don't need to worry about it again. One of my big sayings is that GDPR done right is a mindset, not a rule set. And so it's about getting that mindset right, not just in you, but throughout your organization. Another big pitfall here, and this has really come into sight in the last week, has been more and more important, is ignoring vendor or supply chain risks. And I'm going to put that up even a bit further and say ignoring client slash vendor slash supply chain risks, because Jaguar Land Rover had a data breach a couple of weeks ago now. They've not produced any cars for the last fortnight. They've not sold any spare parts for the last fortnight. The best estimate we saw out of them yesterday was that they're hoping to be back in business by the 1st of October. That's the plan that they're working to. But if you're one of their suppliers and you're supplying parts, suddenly one of your clients has just dried up for 3 weeks. And basically the response from Jaguar Land Rover to their suppliers has just been, well, suck it up. Which isn't easy for some people to do, because if you're a small business, you probably haven't got the resource to last 3 weeks without your key client being there. So one thing I would say there is don't just check that your suppliers are your suppliers and yourselves are GDPR compliant, but check if your clients are too, particularly if they're a weighty client who's going to make up a good proportion of your turnover. Because if they have a breach, they have a GDPR problem, how does that affect you? If they suddenly said tomorrow, your biggest client, think about it right now, if your biggest client said to you tomorrow, we got a contract and we know we pay you money, well, we're suspending it for 3 weeks, then what effect would that have on your business? What can you do about that? Well, you can't make them do anything, of course, but just asking the question is a good start. Um, you know, are they GDPR compliant? And if they're not, then I'm going to do a quick plug here and say, please refer them to us. Um, because if you refer them to us, A, we can get them GDPR compliant, which hopefully means that they won't have a problem of being out because of a data breach. And secondly, is to say that could be worth through our referral program now, up to £450 to you for referring them to us. So, it could be a win-win for you. But more seriously, yes, of course, I'd love you to do that. But also, as I say, it's thinking about if my biggest client stopped trading for 3 weeks, what would I do? Um, so the other thing that I see companies do is they don't train their staff. They don't even have sessions like we're doing now. It is really, really important to train your staff. And again, it's not about training your staff once. My best clients train their staff twice a year. Other clients of mine train their staff once a year. Some have only had the training once and they've never come back to me. That might be because they don't like my style of training, I guess. But more likely, they're just thinking, well, we've done that. We don't need to worry about it again. But you do. Because, as I say, it's a movable feast is one thing. The legislation and best practice changes. And the other thing is that people forget. So that refresher training is so, so important. And the other thing that people do is they overcomplicate policies. They write policies that are full of legalese, which, if you're a lawyer, it's fantastic. Lawyers love reading contracts that are full of legalese because it's what pays their money, keeps their breakfast on the table. But policies really don't need to be full of legalese, and certainly your privacy notice should not be full of legalese. Because your privacy notice, people are actually saying, I know that, I understand that, because that's what they're saying by whether you ask them to tick your box or not. You shouldn't really ask them to tick your box, but some people do. But by dealing with you, people are saying they're happy with your privacy notice. How can they be happy with it if they can't understand it, if it's full of legalese? So don't have lots of legal language in your privacy policy or in any of your policies. Keep it simple. Stupid is still a good philosophy to work to, because at the end of the day, why wouldn't you? So the fast track plan, what can you do? First thing is map your data, because you can't protect what you don't know that you have. If you don't know you've got particular lot of data, how the hell are you going to protect it? Because you don't even know it exists. Number of times that I go into an organization and we get talking about mapping their data, and then suddenly somebody say, oh, but what about that spreadsheet that we hold on that laptop that we only get out of the cupboard once a year and we dust it off? What about that? Yeah, and especially now as well, more and more people are doing hybrid working. And this comes on to the next bit really of identifying the risks and adapts, because when people just used to work in the office, security and looking at and protecting data was reasonably easy. Then we had COVID and everybody went to working from home. And again, most people set up, either they just work from home or they set up a virtual private network into their office. And again, everything was nice and secure and it was reasonably easy. However, two things from that. One is some people still have data on their laptops from when COVID was here 3, 4 years ago, and they've never deleted it. That's all fine, isn't it? Just sits there, not a problem. What if someone steals that laptop? Then it's a problem. Or B, what if you as a business decide that laptop, no one's used it for 3 years, we'll sell it. But have you made sure you've got all the data off it first? It's a risk. But the other risk, the big risk at the moment, is people doing hybrid working. I'm a big fan of hybrid working. I think it's great as long as it's managed properly. Because the problem otherwise is, let's suppose I work in the office Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I work from home Mondays and Fridays. And on Thursday, I'm working on something, and I'm thinking, actually, I could finish this off at home tomorrow. Um, and I make a copy of it onto my laptop. And I take it home, and I work on it. I come back in the office on Tuesday, and upload it back onto the system. Brilliant, no problem there. Well, minor problem, making sure the laptop's password protected, but no big problem there. Except, do I then delete that copy that's on the laptop, or does it just sit there and fester away like a fungus? Um, and you don't want that to happen because that then is opening up a potential risk to your business. So you do need to think about that if you're down in hybrid working. Prioritize the quick wins. If you're going to bring any new process, any new way of working, think about what you can do quickly. What can you do simply? What did you do today that would change something? Because if you change something by 1% a week, by the end of the year, you're not 50% better because it compounds. You're over 100% better than you are where you are now. So prioritize the quick wins, the simple wins. What can you do? Don't think I'm going to rewrite all my policies today because you won't do it. Been there, got that t-shirt, you won't do it. Phase it in over time, not over a massive length of time, but over time. And you need help doing that. Obviously, we can help you. Get your team trained is really, really important. And then rinse and refresh because it really is an ongoing process of mapping it down. Because if I go into a business and I say, when did you map your data processes? Oh, we mapped them in 2018 when GDPR came in. Brilliant. Okay, so you've got your Article 30 register or your ROPA register, as people call it. So if I go to that now, then you documented your process there, and that's if I test one, that's still going to be exactly the same process that you followed today. 99% of the time, it won't be because things change, people change, way people work change. Who had AI within any of their processes 8 years ago? No one. You know, AI was some strange thing we watched on science fiction programs on TV. Now it's very much here. So policies need to be rewritten to make sure they reflect what is really happening. So you put all this approach together. Why does it work? Because it strips out jargon, hate jargon. It's all about having actionable steps. So it's empowering people, not just paperwork. And it's focusing on people because it's people that matter. If you manage your people and you get your people to think about the data that you're handling, and by the way, this is what I always tell my clients to do when I'm training. Don't think about I want to protect that data, imagine it as if it's me, because that's what people tend to say. You tend to do training and say, imagine it's you, and do this, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, great, that works, okay. But far more powerful, imagine that data is about your children or your grandchildren or your niece or nephew if you haven't got children yourself. Somebody, young person you really, really care about. Or imagine that data is about your elderly parent with dementia. If that data was about them, are you then still happy with the way that data is being processed and that data is being handled? If the answer to that is yes, then fantastic. Fill your boots. Keep going the way you're going. But if the answer to that is no, then you need to look at it and say, why are we doing it that way? Which brings it on, he says, brings it on to um, our role in all this. And this is what we can do to help you. This is the only salesy bit in the whole presentation, hopefully, is that we help you simplify compliance. We can do GDPR audits for you. We can map your data for you. We can certainly provide you with training that sticks. We can provide you with consultancy as simple or as complex as you want. And we believe that we have practical and cost-effective solutions. So, call to action. What can you do? Simplify your compliance journey, empower your business, and build trust with your stakeholders. Every business, every organization can make this journey from chaos to clarity. I've not come across an organization or a business who can't do it. Some won't do it, but won't and can't are not the same thing. So I've not come across any who can't do it. So start now to simplify compliance, empower your people, and strengthen trust with your customers, with your stakeholders, with your trustees, with your donors if you're a charity. But give people that confidence, because if people are confident you're handling their data correctly, people will want to do business with you. If they're not confident you're handling their data correctly, they won't do business with you. And then do you know what? Over time, you ain't got a business. So that finishes today's presentation. So I'm going to stop sharing so I can see everybody. I'm going to end the slideshow. And if anyone's got any questions, I'd fire away.
One thing we've come across recently, Keith, is when our third-party processors have undergone mergers or takeovers, and we've suddenly realised that the DPIA referred to the pre-merger or the pre-takeover situation. So you're talking about refreshing your processes. It's really important because like you say, things change and things, we've had two lots of third parties go into mergers and we've had to redo the GDPR side of things.
Yeah, absolutely, Kate. Very good point. You're quite right. In fact, I had a client I was dealing with yesterday, where they appointed a data processor to do some processing for them. Fine, no problem there. What I didn't realize was the data processor was actually now using a sub processor, who the client knew nothing at all about. That in itself was bad. What compounded that issue was that the sub processor had a data breach. And suddenly my clients being told XYZ had a data breach, and they're like, what's XYZ got to do with us? And then realizing that the processor had now employed this new sub-processor to do work for them. And that just creates a muddy hole. And so, yeah, it is so important to refresh that. And it is always worth going back, I would say annually to your suppliers and just saying, or your processors rather, and just saying, has anything changed?
Yes.
Because as you say, mergers happen, acquisitions happen, and suddenly, or it can be as simple as well as suddenly they're not using the company they were using to host all their data anymore, and suddenly your data, which you think and your DPIA, your DPIA says is being processed in the UK, and now that data is being processed in Ecuador.
Yeah.
Suddenly you've got a problem. So yeah, it is a question of making sure things are up to date.
Thank you.
Anyone else got any questions? No. Okay, well, if no one else has got any questions, then I'm going to say thank you very much for coming along to the Data Privacy Forum this morning. We run these forums every 2 weeks, apart from, of course, we didn't run it 2 weeks ago because we had an unexpected problem. But we run them every 2 weeks. Please do come along. Again, you're more than welcome. Do tell your friends and colleagues about it, because the more people we can get in the room, the better it is. And also to say, in the weeks in between, when we don't have the forum, we have a newsletter that goes out. So if you're not already signed up to that newsletter, let us know and we can get you signed up to that. But other than that, thank you very much for being here this morning. And I'll let you all get on with your day.
Thank you.
And Debbie, can you stop the recording, please?